The desert highway stretched endless before me, a black vein under a sky bleeding red into dusk. I was alone, my old Chevy humming through the high mesa, the radio, a faint crackle of static. Then in my rearview mirror, a dark blue sedan appeared too close, its headlights piercing like eyes that wouldn't blink. It wasn't just tailgating, it was hunting, matching my every move, a shadow I couldn't shake. By the time it followed me to my driveway, I knew this wasn't a mistake. It was something darker, something that wanted me. I'd driven this route before a lonely stretch from Boulder, Colorado to northern New Mexico, 90 miles of desolate, high desert, punctuated by tiny towns and vast, empty landscapes. It was February 2016, and I was 23, visiting a friend for the weekend. The trip up had been uneventful, filled with podcasts and the hum of my tires on asphalt. But the drive home felt different from the start. Sensory overload. The air was crisp, carrying the sharp scent of sagebrush and dust, the horizon glowing with a sunset that seemed too vivid, too final. My Chevy, reliable but old, rattled softly, a comforting rhythm against the growing unease in my chest. I stopped for gas in Alamosa, the last real town before home. The station was quiet, a single attendant inside the pumps, bathed in harsh fluorescent light. As I filled the tank, I noticed the sedan, a dark blue, nondescript model, maybe a decade old, parked at the edge of the lot, its engine idling, its driver obscured by tinted windows. I didn't think much of it, then just another traveler on a long road. But when I pulled onto the highway, the sedan followed its headlights, cutting through the gathering dusk, settling too close to my bumper. Pattern interruption. My heart gave a quick thud, my hands tightening on the wheel. It wasn't just following, it was glued to me, inches away, unyielding. I sped up, pushing 70, then 75. The speed limit. A distant memory. The sedan matched me its lights, unwavering, a predator pacing its prey. I slowed to 60, hoping they'd pass. But they didn't, dropping back just enough to stay in my shadow. Embedded command. Feel it now, the weight of those lights in your mirror, the way they pin you, relentless, knowing you can't escape. My stomach twisted, my mind racing through possibilities. A cop may be waiting for a mistake, but there were no markings. No flashing lights, just that dark, silent car. I glanced at my phone. An old iPhone, useless, without Wi-Fi out here. No way to call for help. The highway was empty. No other cars in sight. Just the desert, stretching vast and indifferent on either side. Sensory overload. The wind howled softly, rattling my windows, the static on the radio growing louder, a white noise that seemed to pulse with my heartbeat. The sedan's headlights filled my rearview mirror, blinding, inescapable. I tried to focus on the road, the yellow lines blurring under my tires, but the pressure of that car, its silent pursuit, was a noose tightening around my neck. I'd heard stories about this mesa, missing hikers, strange lights, crimes that went unsolved. Nested storytelling. My friend in Boulder had told me about a woman who'd driven this road at night, followed by a truck that vanished when she reached town. "This place eats people," she'd said, half joking. I wasn't laughing now. In Antonito, a small town 30 miles from home, I pulled into a convenience store lot, my hands shaking as I parked under a streetlight. The sedan followed, stopping right behind me, its engine idling like a low growl. I waited my breath, shallow, expecting a cop to step out, a ticket, anything to explain this. No one emerged. The tinted windows hid the driver, but I felt their eyes, watching, waiting. Trance loop. I sat there, minutes dragging like hours, my pulse a drum beat in my ears, the sedan's presence a weight I couldn't shake. Finally, I drove off my tires, squealing, hoping to lose them in the dark. They followed closer now, their headlights a constant glare. I crossed into New Mexico, my heart sinking as I realized this wasn't a cop. Cops don't tail you across state lines without a reason. Pattern interruption. The mesa grew darker, the stars sharp and cold, the road a tunnel through nothingness. I missed the turn to my dirt road home, my mind clouded by panic, and kept driving until I reached a scenic rest area, well lit and familiar. I pulled in my hands, trembling, and the sedan followed, parking behind me again. Anger mixed with fear, and I decided to confront them, stupid or not. I stepped out, my boots crunching on gravel, the air biting my skin. The sedan's driver was a woman, middle-aged, plain, her face unremarkable under the rest area's lights. Sensory overload. Her hair was graying, her eyes tired but sharp, her hands gripping the wheel. The back seat was too dark to see a void that made my skin crawl. "What's your problem?" I shouted, my voice cracking. She rolled down her window, her expression calm, almost apologetic. "I thought you were my daughter," she said, her voice flat. "Your car looks like hers." It was a lie, and we both knew it. My Chevy had New Mexico plates covered in bumper stickers, peace signs, local bands, a faded coexist. No one could mistake it for another. And why follow for 90 miles without calling her daughter Trance Loop. Her words replayed in my mind, hollow, rehearsed a mask for something else. I told her off, my voice rising, but she just apologized again, her eyes never leaving mine. I got back in my car, my hands shaking, and drove off, checking my mirror. She followed, turning onto my dirt road, a dead-end path with no way out. My heart raced, my palms sweaty. This wasn't a mistake, she was hunting me. I pulled over, yelling, "Stop following me. This road's a dead end. It's dangerous. Turn around now." She apologized again, her voice eerily calm, but kept driving, trailing me to my driveway. Nested storytelling. I remembered a story my neighbor told me about a man followed home by a car that parked outside his house all night. Its driver never seen. He'd moved away, spooked by the mesa's reputation. That story hit me now, a warning I couldn't ignore. I reached my house, my boyfriend's truck in the drive, a beacon of safety. The sedan pulled in behind me, and she got out her silhouette, small but menacing in the dusk. "Can I stay the night?" she asked, her voice soft, pleading. "I'm so tired." My blood ran cold, my voice rising to a scream. "Get out of here," I shouted, backing toward the house. My boyfriend emerged, drawn by the noise, his broad frame filling the doorway. Pattern interruption. The moment she saw him, she froze, then bolted to her car, peeling out in a cloud of dust, her tail lights vanishing into the dark. We locked the doors, checked the windows, my heart still pounding. I told my boyfriend everything, my voice shaking, but he couldn't explain it either. Embedded command. Picture it now, standing in your driveway, a stranger's car behind you, their voice soft but wrong, knowing you're not safe. I didn't sleep that night, my eyes fixed on the window, expecting her headlights to return. The mesa felt alive, its silence a threat, its shadows hiding secrets. I didn't want to know. I reported it to the police, but they shrugged it off. No crime, no evidence, just a feeling. But I know what I felt. A predator, not a lost traveler. Anchoring. That woman. Her calm voice, her unblinking eyes. They're burned into me, a reminder that the world isn't safe. I avoid that highway. Now, take back roads, check my mirrors too often. Trance loop. I see her face in strangers, her sedan in every shadow, her voice in my nightmares. What did she want? Why me, and how close did I come to finding out? He called himself my brother, his smile warm, his hands quick, on the keyboard. But in the dead of night, his knife gleamed, and our home became a battlefield, its scars etched in my memory forever. In the summer of my 10th year, 2004, our apartment in Oregon was a fragile sanctuary, its walls thin as the promises that held our family together. I was a quiet kid, caught between two worlds. One week with Mom, the next with Dad, shuttling like a parcel no one wanted to claim. Dad was a shadow of a father, his eyes always elsewhere, his voice sharp with the weight of debts and regrets. He'd been in a car accident as a teenager, told he'd never have kids, but life had other plans. By his 30s, he'd fathered 13 of us, maybe 15. Now, scattered like seeds, he never tended. I was number 13, the youngest, he acknowledged, though I only knew one sister, her face a fleeting memory from a rare visit. Our home was low-income housing. Its carpets stained its windows. Drafty, the air heavy with the scent of stale cigarette smoke and despair. Dad was a mystery, a man who loved us in his way, but never showed it. He'd been in the military, stationed in the Middle East, a fact he mentioned only in passing. His medals, hidden in a drawer, I wasn't allowed to touch. Mom, a nurse, was kinder, but distant. Her visits brief, her calls rare. My younger sister, barely 6, was my anchor, her giggles a light in our dim world. We lived week to week, surviving on canned soup and hand-me-downs. The TV, our only escape. The apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, and a living room that doubled as my sleeping space when Dad needed privacy. It was a life of making do, of ignoring the cracks in the walls and the ones in our family. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through our smudged windows, a stranger knocked. I was sprawled on the couch, watching reruns, when Dad answered the door. The man was tall, skinny, maybe 19 or 20, his hair shaggy, his face shadowed with stubble. He carried an old laptop, its edges chipped, and a backpack that sagged as if it held nothing but secrets. "I'm your son," he said, his voice low, almost reverent. Dad froze his hand gripping the doorframe, his eyes searching the man's face. "From California," the stranger added, mentioning a name I didn't catch, a mother I'd never heard of. Dad nodded slow, like he was piecing together a puzzle, and invited him in. "Your family," he said, but his voice was tight, uncertain. He took my room, this supposed brother, and I was relegated to the couch, my blankets a thin barrier against the night's chill. Dad was strange about him, locking my bedroom door, forbidding me to enter. "He needs space," he'd say, his eyes avoiding mine. I didn't argue, though. Curiosity burned in me. The stranger was odd, but kind, his smile easy, his hands quick, as he showed me his laptop, its screen glowing with pixelated worlds. We played Minecraft together, building castles on a local server, his laughter infectious as we competed to craft the best redstone contraption. He said he was a programmer working on a game like Skyrim. Its code a labyrinth he navigated with ease. I thought he was cool, a glimpse of the brother I'd always wanted. But something in his eyes, too sharp, too watchful, made my stomach twist. Weeks passed, a month maybe, and the apartment felt smaller, the air thicker. Dad was tense, his footsteps heavy, his glances at the locked door frequent. My sister clung to me, her small hand in mine, sensing the shift, but not understanding it. I'd catch the stranger staring at her. Sometimes, his smile fading, his fingers twitching as if itching for something. We planned a Minecraft showdown, a contest to see whose redstone build was better set for the next day. I was excited, my mind buzzing with ideas. But that night, everything shattered. It was past midnight, the apartment dark, save for the flicker of a street light through the blinds. I was half asleep on the couch, my blanket tangled, when a scream tore through the silence, Dad's voice raw with rage and pain. The walls shook with heavy thuds, like bodies crashing against them, and I bolted upright, my heart hammering. The bedroom door flew open, and I saw him, the stranger, his face pale, his eyes wild, a knife gleaming in his hand. Dad was behind him, blood staining his shirt, his face twisted in fury. "Get out," Dad roared, lunging his military training, kicking in as he tackled the man. They grappled the knife, flashing, and I screamed for my sister, praying she was safe. The stranger broke free, sprinting out the front door, Dad chasing him into the night. I ran to my sister's room, finding her curled under her bed, her eyes wide with terror. "It's okay," I whispered, pulling her close, though my own body shook. Dad returned his chest, heaving blood seeping from a wound on his chest. He sank into a chair, his face gray, and stayed there until dawn, guarding us like a sentinel. I didn't sleep. The image of that knife burned into my mind, the stranger's face, a mask of betrayal. Months later, the truth unraveled. Mom confirmed it, her voice steady, as she recounted what Dad had told her. The stranger had crept into Dad's room, stabbed him in his sleep, aiming for his heart. Dad woke, fought back, and saved my sister from the same fate wrestling the knife away. The wound wasn't deep, Mom said, and she'd patched it herself. Dad, too, broke to afford a hospital. The police came, their flashlights sweeping our apartment, revealing the stranger was a wanted man, a criminal from California, Oregon, Washington. His lies, a web spun to exploit us. I'd told Mom about it. She said, though I don't remember, the memory buried in the fog of trauma. I'm 21 now, and the apartment is a ghost in my mind. Its walls holding secrets I'll never fully grasp. I learned a lesson that night, carved in blood and fear. Don't open your door to strangers, no matter what they claim. That man, whoever he was, tore through our lives like a storm, leaving scars that still ache. I wonder if he's out there, his laptop glowing his lies, ready for the next family to shatter. The night was too still, the air too heavy, as if the world held its breath. I was 28, sitting in my basement, the glow of the TV, my only company, my rifle close at hand. The woods around our rural home were silent, but then it came, footsteps on the gravel, quick and sharp, like a dance no human could perform. I froze, my heart pounding the darkness outside, pressing against the glass. This wasn't a thief, wasn't an animal. It was something else, whispering my words back to me, walking on my roof. And it wanted me to know it was there. The house was old, its wooden bones creaking under the weight of years, nestled in a pocket of farmland and forest in rural Virginia. I was 28, living with my grandfather. My days spent tending to him, my nights guarding our quiet life. At 84, he was sharp of mind, but frail of body. His bedroom upstairs, mine in the basement. A concrete bunker I'd made my own. The town was small. No sidewalks, no crime, just fields and trees stretching into the dark, our nearest neighbor, hidden by a dense tree line. I was a firearm instructor. Once my hands steady with a rifle, my instincts honed by years of training. The gun in my closet was a comfort, a tool I knew better than most. But that night, it felt like a child's toy. I sat on the couch, the TV, playing a movie I barely watched, headphones on the volume high, to drown out the world. The basement was my sanctuary, its big window covered by blinds, its glass door shaded, letting in only silhouettes of the night. Around 11 p.m., a sound cut through the headphones' footsteps on the gravel driveway, fast and erratic, like someone sprinting or dancing. I paused the movie, my pulse quickening, and pulled off the headphones, the silence rushing in thick and unnatural. I listened, my breath shallow, the sound gone, but the memory sharp. I stood my socks silent, on the concrete and peered through the glass door's shade, the floodlights off the night, a wall of black. Nothing moved, but the air felt wrong, charged like a storm about to break. I told myself it was a deer, a fox, the woods alive with creatures I knew well. But the rhythm was too strange, too human, yet not human enough. I sat back my hand on the couch, ready to dismiss it, when 3 sharp taps hit the window. Behind me, deliberate, precise. My heart lurched, my body turning, but the blinds hid the outside, their slats a frail barrier. No one I knew would do this. Not at this hour. Not in this place. The night was no longer empty. It was watching, and I was its focus. I stood, my legs unsteady, the taps echoing in my mind, each one a challenge. The gravel crunched again, louder now, as if someone or something ran away. The sound fading into the briar patch beyond the driveway, the woods swallowing it whole. I moved to the closet, my hands finding the rifle, its weight familiar, its flashlight mount a beacon in the dark. I stepped outside, the air cold, the floodlights blazing their glow harsh against the trees. The tree line was still, its branches tangled the briar patch impenetrable. I swept the flashlight, its beam cutting the dark, searching for eyes, for movement, for anything. The gravel showed no prints, no sign of passage, but the air was heavy. The silence too deep, as if the crickets, the owls had fled. I called out, my voice sharp. "Hey!" The word hung unanswered. The woods a void that drank it down. I waited, my rifle shouldered, my breath visible, the night pressing closer, its weight, a hand on my neck. Then it came, a whisper, loud but soft, from the trees, maybe 100 feet away. "Hey," it said, my word thrown back, its tone mocking inhuman. My skin crawled, my grip tightening the flashlight, trembling. I yelled again, my voice raw. "Wrong house. Get out, or you're dead." The words were bravado, a shield against the fear clawing at me. But the whisper didn't answer, the woods silent once more. I scanned the trees, their shadows shifting, but no one was there. No one I could see. A flicker caught my eye, a glint, like metal in the underbrush, small as a dime, gone as I focused. The bushes rustled faint, but deliberate, and I froze, my rifle aimed, my heart a drum. The silence returned heavier, now the night a predator waiting. I backed toward the house, my eyes on the trees. The whisper replaying its voice, not human, not animal, but something else, something that knew me. Back inside, I locked the door, the shade drawn, the floodlights still on their glow, a frail defense. I stood by the glass, my rifle in hand, the basement cold, the TV's glow forgotten. The night was silent. The insects gone, the air too still, like the world had paused, watching. I waited my breath, shallow, the whisper, a splinter in my thoughts, its mockery, a blade. I thought of cryptids, Wendigo, Buhag stories, whispered in town, but dismissed them. My training grounding me, my rifle, a truth I could hold. Then it came again, 2 soft whistles, like a bird, but wrong from the tree line, 20 feet to the right. My heart stopped, the sound too close, too deliberate. I shouldered the rifle my flashlight aimed and fired 3 shots into the ground, short of the trees, a warning to scare kids or beasts. The neighbor's dog barked, startled, but no one ran. No footsteps fled the woods, unmoved. I scanned the trees, my beam shaking, the whistles gone, but the air was alive, its weight crushing the night, a hunter and I its prey. I moved to the right, the woods less dense, there no briar, just trees and shadows. I searched my flashlight, probing, but found nothing, no tracks, no eyes, no sign. The silence was worse, a void that begged to be filled, the night's eyes on me, unblinking. I returned to the house, my grandfather at the door, his face pale, his voice steady. "What happened?" he asked. And I told him. My words rushed the fear, raw. I loaded his revolver, placing it by his bed, our rooms too far for comfort, the house too big, too open. I climbed to the kitchen, the upstairs dark, the air cold despite the summer. I grabbed a water bottle, my hands shaking the fridge's hum, a frail normalcy. As the door closed, footsteps sounded heavy, deliberate on the roof above a grown man's weight, slow and steady. My blood froze my body, rigid. The skylight in the kitchen, a window to the dark. I stared, praying nothing looked back. The footsteps pacing from my grandfather's room to the kitchen, back and forth, a rhythm of intent. I ran downstairs. My rifle clutched the footsteps, still above their weight, a threat I couldn't face. Outside, I scanned the roof, the flashlight beam trembling, the night empty but alive. The roof's edge was high, unreachable without a ladder, no tree close enough to climb. I circled the house twice, yelling, "Get out, or I'll shoot." The words were hollow, the night unmoved. The footsteps gone, but their echo stayed a mark on my soul. I returned inside the rifle in my lap, the TV on its light, a lie of safety. The night passed, No more sounds, no more whispers, but sleep didn't come. The fear a guest I couldn't send away. I told family friends, but they dismissed it. Kids, birds, my mind playing tricks. But I knew the whisper, too real, the footsteps too heavy, the night too wrong. I thought of Wendigo, of stories older than the town, but found no answers, only questions, each one a weight. The days since have been sleepless. The woods no longer mine, their shadows deeper, their silence a threat. My grandfather is safe, the rifle closer now, but the night knows me, its whisper, a promise, its steps, a vow. The house stands, the woods wait, and I wonder, what was it, and will it come again? The answer is out there, beyond the trees, whispering, walking, watching, and I fear I'll hear it soon. The woods were alive that night, but not with the hum of crickets or the rustle of leaves. It was April 18th, 2005, my 11th birthday, and I stood alone in a swampy, moss-draped forest, clutching a trash bag, waiting for a bird that didn't exist. My cousins had promised a game, a rite of passage, but their laughter had faded hours ago, leaving me in a darkness that pulsed with something ancient, something hungry. Then the silence came sharp and total, and a whistle, not human, not animal, cut through the night, inches behind me. I wasn't alone anymore, and whatever was with me wasn't playing a game. I grew up in rural North Carolina, where the world was tobacco fields, soybean patches, and woods so dense they seemed to swallow the sun. Our town was small, 161 souls, one gas station, one caution, light at the crossroads. Fun meant riding ATVs, swimming in ponds, or pulling pranks on the new kid. I was that kid, desperate to fit in with my older cousins and their friends, 8th and 9th graders, who seemed to hold the keys to a world I longed to enter. My uncle's house was my second home, a weathered farmhouse surrounded by fields, the only neighbor for miles. That's where they brought me for the snipe hunt, a cruel tradition dressed up as a game. The snipe, they said, was a small, flightless bird, easy to catch if you held a trash bag to the ground while they chased it toward you. I believed them, my heart swelling with the chance to prove myself. Sensory overload. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine. The evening sky, a bruised purple, the woods looming like a wall of secrets. They led me deep into the forest, their flashlights bobbing their voices loud with excitement. "Hold the bag low, my cousin," Daniel said, his grin wide. "We'll drive the snipe right to you." I nodded, clutching the plastic my sneakers sinking into the muddy ground. They disappeared, their footsteps fading, their laughter swallowed by the trees. I stood there alone, the bag crinkling in my hands, the woods growing darker by the minute. Pattern interruption. The cricket's song was loud at first, a chorus of chirps joined by the hoots of owls and the hum of cicadas. It was comforting familiar, the soundtrack of my Boy Scout hikes and hunting trips with my grandfather. But after an hour, maybe two, the realization hit this was no game. They'd left me a prank to humiliate the new kid. My face burned with shame, but I stayed hoping they'd come back, not wanting to admit defeat. I sat against a large pine, its bark rough against my back, the trash bag limp in my lap. The woods were alive, the sounds wrapping around me like a blanket, crickets chirping, owls calling, cicadas singing. I tried to relax, to let the forest's rhythm calm me, but the air felt heavier now, the darkness thicker. Sensory overload. The smell of moss and decay grew sharper, the air cooler, brushing my skin like a whisper I couldn't hear. My grandfather's voice echoed in my mind, a nested storytelling moment that surfaced unbidden. The woods go quiet when something's wrong, he'd said, his eyes serious, teaching me to hunt. When the animals stop, you listen, because something's watching. Then it happened. Pattern interruption. The forest went silent, not gradually, but all at once, as if a switch had been flipped. No crickets, no owls, no cicadas, just a void, a silence so deep it pressed against my ears. My heart thudded loud in the quiet, my breath shallow. I slowed it, just as my grandfather taught, until I could hear my own heartbeat, steady, deliberate, embedded command. Feel it now, the way the silence wraps around you, heavy, alive, telling you you're not alone. I scanned the darkness, my eyes straining, but saw nothing, just the black wall of trees. A whistle broke the silence, sharp and clear, like a cowboy calling a herd no more than 25 feet behind me. My body froze, every muscle locked, my heart racing. It wasn't my cousins. They'd have been yelling, laughing, their footsteps crunching through the leaves. This was different, deliberate human, but not quite. Trance. Loop. I heard it again, closer. Now, maybe 15 feet, a high screechy note that mimicked a human voice but twisted it like a parrot gone wrong. The air grew thick, heavy with a smell, putrid, like roadkill mixed with cigarette smoke, choking me. I didn't move, didn't breathe. my mind screaming, "Stay still, stay quiet." I sat there, back against the pine for what felt like an eternity. My body rigid, my eyes fixed on the darkness. The smell faded. The crickets returned tentative. At first, then louder, joined by an owl's single hoot. I exhaled, my shoulders sagging, thinking it was over. I stood dropping the trash bag, ready to walk the mile back home. Pattern interruption. The moment the bag hit the ground, the silence returned sharper, colder, a blade against my skin. A breath, not mine, not human, came from behind the pine, inches from my head. The putrid smell flooded back stronger, suffocating, like death itself had exhaled. I turned slow, against every instinct, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. Sensory overload. In the faint moonlight, I saw them antlers curling around the tree, their tips brushing the bark where my shoulders had been. They weren't attached to anything I could see, just there hovering impossible. Then another whistle, soft, warm, almost inviting, but it sent a chill down my spine. Trance, loop. The woods erupted crickets, screaming owls, shrieking cicadas, belting like the world was ending. I ran my legs, pumping branches, clawing at my face, my eyes darting back every few steps. Nothing followed. No footsteps, no antlers, but the chaos of the forest chased me, a cacophony of terror. I stumbled into a clearing, the electric fence of a pasture glinting under the stars. I ducked under it, my breath ragged, my body trembling. The woods were still screaming, urging me to run, but I paused, gasping my hands on my knees. Pattern, interruption. A single whistle came again, soft from just beyond the trees, and I bolted, not looking back, my sneakers pounding the dirt until I reached my uncle's house. The sun was rising, painting the sky a sickly yellow as I burst through the door. My cousins and their friends were passed out on the couch, Hailuo still flickering on the TV. I collapsed my chest, heaving, trying to erase the night. Daniel stirred as I sat, my eyes burning with exhaustion. I glanced out the window, the woods still dark, impenetrable, even in the dawn. Sensory overload. The air smelled of stale pizza and sweat. The house warm, but not safe. Not anymore. Something caught my eye, a black shape outside near the tree line. I jumped up, waking Daniel, begging for his rifle with a scope. He laughed, handing me the Ruger, thinking I was spooked by a shadow. I aimed at the shape, my hands shaking, and saw it, the trash bag I'd dropped impossibly there, caught on a branch. Nested storytelling. My grandfather once told me about a hunter lost in these woods, found days later, babbling about antlers and a smell that wasn't human. "Some things don't let you go," he'd said, his voice low. I hadn't believed him then, but now staring at that bag, I did. I didn't sleep that day, my mind replaying the whistle, the antlers, the smell. Trance. Loop. I see them still. Those antlers curling around the tree, the whistle echoing in my ears, the woods alive with something that wasn't animal, wasn't human. I asked Daniel about the bag, but he swore they never went back for it. No one did. Embedded command. Picture it now standing alone in the dark, the silence crushing you, a whistle calling from nowhere, antlers waiting just out of sight. I've avoided those woods since, but they call to me, their darkness, a magnet I can't resist. I'm older now, living miles away, but the memory is a wound that won't heal. Anchoring. That night, those antlers that whistle, they're part of me, a fear I carry like a shadow. I've read about Wendigos, skinwalkers, things that haunt the Carolinas, but nothing fits. The woods here are older than the stories, and they hold things that don't belong. Nested storytelling. A friend once told me about a camper who heard a whistle in these woods, saw antlers in the fog, and never camped again. I believe him now because I know what's out there, waiting, watching, whistling in the dark. I drive past those woods, sometimes the trees still dense, still silent. I wonder if it's still there, whatever it was, waiting for another kid with a trash bag, another soul to claim. Trance loop. The whistle haunts my dreams, soft and inviting, then screeching inhuman. The antlers loom behind my eyes, curling like claws. Anchoring. That night changed me, made me fear the quiet, the dark, the places where the world goes still. I'll never know what it was, but I know it knew me, and it's waiting, patient, eternal, for me to come back. The sand was warm, the waves a gentle hum, but his eyes, those unblinking hollow eyes, cut through the sunlight, freezing my soul. In a moment, I can't escape. The September sun hung low over the New York coastline, its warmth a stubborn holdout against the creeping autumn chill. My sister and I, craving one last taste of summer, drove to a beach just outside the city, a stretch of sand forgotten after Labor Day. Schools were back in session, lifeguards gone, and the shore felt like a secret kept from the bustling world. We arrived around 11, the air salty and sharp, the horizon an endless expanse of blue. I spread our blanket on the sand, its bright stripes a contrast to the muted dunes. My sister, younger by 2 years, settled into her beach chair, her sunglasses glinting as she flipped through a magazine. I stretched out, letting the sun soak into my skin, the waves, a soothing rhythm in my ears. The beach wasn't empty, but it was close. A couple lounged nearby, their laughter soft, their cooler packed with soda cans that glistened with condensation. Further down, two women sat in beach chairs, their voices carried away by the breeze. And then there was him, a man wandering the shoreline, his headphones, a black band across his head, his steps aimless but steady. He was tall, his frame lean, his clothes nondescript, a faded t-shirt, shorts, sneakers caked with sand. I noticed him in passing, his presence unremarkable, just another soul drawn to the sea. We'd come here to unwind, to let the world fade away, and for a while, it did. The sun climbed higher, the sand grew hotter, and I felt the weight of the city lift from my shoulders. By 1 o'clock, the couple packed up their voices, fading as they trudged toward the parking lot. The two women remained distant specks against the dunes, their chairs like sentinels in the sand. My sister was engrossed in her magazine, her chair creaking as she shifted. I flipped onto my stomach, the blanket rough beneath me, determined to even out my tan. The sun was relentless, its heat pressing into my back, the air thick with the scent of sunscreen and salt. I closed my eyes, lulled by the waves, when my sister's voice cut through sharp and trembling. There's a man coming toward us. My eyes snapped open, my heart lurching. I pushed myself up sand, clinging to my skin, and saw him, the man with the headphones, no longer wandering aimlessly. He was walking straight toward us, his arms swinging in a way that felt too deliberate, too focused. His headphones were still on, but his gaze was fixed, unblinking, locked on us. I scrambled to my knees, my pulse racing, the blanket bunching beneath me. He was closer now, standing at the edge of our blanket, his shadow falling across us like a stain. His face was plain, almost forgettable, but his eyes, they were empty, dark pools that seemed to swallow the light. No smile, no expression, just that stare, heavy and relentless. I forced my voice to stay steady, though it shook at the edges. "Do you need something?" I asked, my hands gripping the blanket, ready to bolt. He didn't answer, didn't move, just stood there, his gaze shifting between me and my sister. My sister's breath hitched, her magazine, forgotten, her chair creaking as she leaned back. "Let's go," she whispered, her voice barely audible, her eyes wide with fear. I nodded, my mind screaming to move to get away, but my body felt heavy, pinned by his stare. We grabbed our things, towels, phones, my sister's magazine, our movements frantic, clumsy. He didn't move, didn't speak, just watched his presence, a weight that pressed against my chest. We stumbled across the sand, our flip-flops slipping the dunes, looming like barriers. I glanced back, half expecting him to follow, but he stood, rooted his figure, stark against the bright sea. The parking lot was a short walk, but it felt endless, the gravel sharp under my feet, the air thick with the threat of what might wait ahead. My sister clung to my arm, her nails digging into my skin, her breath fast and shallow. "What was that?" she whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't have an answer, only the image of his eyes, unblinking, burned into my mind. We reached our car, locked the doors, and sat there, trembling, the engine idling as we tried to make sense of it. I called the police. From the car, my hands shaking as I dialed. The officer listened, his voice calm but distant, taking notes as I described the man, the headphones, the stare that felt like a violation. "We'll file a report," he said, but his tone suggested little would come of it. No crime had been committed. Not really, just a man who stood too close, who looked too long. But it wasn't just that. It was the way his eyes seemed to know us, to see through us, to promise something unspoken. We drove home, the beach fading in the rear view, but the fear stayed a shadow that clung to us both. Days later, I couldn't shake it. I'd close my eyes and see him, his silhouette against the waves, his gaze a weight I couldn't lift. My sister was quieter, her laughter gone, her beach chair untouched in the garage. We didn't go back, couldn't not, with the memory of that stare haunting us. I wonder what he wanted, what he saw in us, what he might have done if we hadn't left. The beach, once a place of freedom, is now a trap in my mind, its sands hiding dangers I'll never understand. The phone rang its shrill tone, cutting through the quiet of my bedroom, a lifeline to her voice. I was 19, sprawled on my bed, waiting for my girlfriend's call as she drove through the dark woods. Her words were soft, familiar, a tether to safety, until they weren't. A voice broke through, deep and guttural, speaking words no human could form, words that weren't hers. It wasn't static, wasn't interference. It was something else, something that knew we were listening, and it wanted us to hear. The fall of 2009 was chilly, the air sharp with the scent of leaves and dusk. I was 19, living at home with my mom, My college life a blur of classes and late-night talks with my girlfriend, Emily. We'd been together a year. Our bond tight. Despite the distance, she was at a co-worker's party in a nearby town, a 30-minute drive through woods that swallowed the light. I stayed home, my head pounding from a cold. The TV muted its glow, a faint comfort in my room. The phone rang at 7:30 p.m. Emily's name lighting up the screen, her voice a warm thread through the miles. "Hey," she said, her tone light, the hum of her car in the background. "Just left the party. Boring without you." I smiled, sinking into the pillows, her words a balm to my fever. We talked about nothing. Her day, my cold, the way the stars looked from her windshield, the woods a tunnel around her. The connection was clear. Her voice steady the night, a bridge between us. I closed my eyes, picturing her behind the wheel, her hair catching the dashboard light, the road winding through pines. She laughed, teasing me about skipping the party, and I felt the world shrink, just us, the phone a lifeline. The woods she described were familiar, a stretch we'd driven together, their darkness a quiet companion. I asked about the party, her voice painting the scene. Too much beer, too little music, and I relaxed the fever, fading her words a steady rhythm. Then the line changed, a shift so subtle I almost missed it. Her voice cut out mid-sentence, the silence sudden heavy. I sat up, my heart quickening, the phone cold against my ear. "Emily," I said, my voice sharp. No answer, just a faint hum, not static, but something else, something alive. I waited, my breath shallow, the silence stretching a void that pressed against me. The TV's glow flickered, the room too small, the night too big, and I knew something was wrong. Something beyond a dropped call. The hum grew low and deep, like a machine waking up, its vibration crawling through the phone. Then it came a voice, not hers, not human, a guttural rumble that filled my head, speaking words I couldn't understand. It wasn't English, wasn't Spanish, wasn't anything I'd heard, a language of sharp edges and rolling tones, urgent, angry. My blood froze, my hand trembling, the phone a weight I couldn't drop. "Emily," I said again, my voice a plea, but the voice continued, relentless, its cadence wrong, like it came from a throat not built for speech. I stood pacing the room, my fever forgotten, the TV's light, a mockery of safety. The voice wasn't static, wasn't radio bleed. It was clear, deliberate, aimed at me. I pressed the phone tighter, my ear aching, trying to catch a familiar sound, a hint of her, but there was only the voice, its words, alien, its tone, a blade. The room spun, the walls closing in the night, outside a wall of black pressing against the windows. The call ended the silence, louder than the voice, my heart pounding in my chest. I stared at the phone, its screen dark, Emily's name gone. Seconds later, it rang again, her name back, and I hesitated, my fingers shaking. I answered my voice, barely a whisper. Hello. It was her, Emily, her breath quick, her voice trembling. What was that? She asked, and my stomach dropped. She'd heard it too. The same voice, the same words on her end, in her car, alone in the woods. I ran to the living room, my mom on the couch, her eyes soft with concern. Listen to this, I said, shoving the phone at her, but the call had ended, the voice gone. I tried to explain my words, tumbling, the fear raw. It wasn't human, I said, and she frowned her hand on my shoulder, but the phone rang again. Emily's voice, back her panic, a mirror of mine. I heard it too, she said. Her words rushed the woods around her. Darker now, her car, a fragile shell. We stayed on the line, our voices low, piecing together what happened. She'd been talking, the road empty, when the voice broke through deep and alien, speaking the same strange language I'd heard. It wasn't static, wasn't a crossed line. It was there in our call, a presence that knew us. It sounded angry, she said, her voice shaking, and I nodded, though she couldn't see the memory of the voice, a weight in my chest. The woods, she said, felt alive, their shadows moving her headlights, weak against the dark. I told my mom, her face skeptical, but worried her hand on the phone as if it could explain. Maybe it was interference, she said, but I shook my head, the voice too clear, too deliberate. Emily agreed, her voice faint through the speaker, the miles between us, a chasm, now the phone no longer safe. We tried to rationalize radio signals, a prank, a glitch, but nothing fit the voice, too real, too wrong, its words, a puzzle we couldn't solve. The night stretched the house, too quiet, the TV's glow a lie of normalcy. I stayed up, the phone by my side. Emily safe at home now, but the fear lingered, a guest we couldn't send away. We checked the call logs, the timestamps, finding nothing. No unknown numbers, no trace of the voice. It was as if it hadn't happened, but we knew, both of us, its echo in our minds, its tone, a scar we couldn't erase. I thought of the woods, their darkness, their silence, and wondered if something lived there, something that reached through the phone, through us. The idea was mad, but the voice was real, its words a language of another world, another time. My mom stayed close, her presence a comfort. But the night was hers now, the voices, and I felt it, watching, waiting its message, unfinished. Years passed. Emily and I parted, but the call stayed a shadow we couldn't shake. We'd see each other, our smiles, tight, and mention it, our voices low. Remember that phone call, we'd say, and the memory would flood back, the voices rumble, its alien words. We never found answers, never tried the fear too raw to dig deeper. Friends dismissed it, interference, a prank, but they didn't hear it, didn't feel its weight, its intent. I still hear it sometimes. In quiet moments, the phone's ring, a trigger, the woods, a memory I can't escape. Emily feels it too. Her texts rare, but pointed the call a bond we didn't choose. The house is the same. My mom's couch unchanged, but the phone is different. Its silence, a lie. I wonder what it was, ghost entity, something beyond, and why it chose us, why that night, why those woods. The world moves on, but I don't, not fully. Every call, every hum pulls me back. The voice, a whisper in my mind, its words a riddle I'll never solve. The phone was our link, our safety, but it betrayed us, letting something in, something that spoke and vanished, leaving only fear. I listen now, always for the voice that wasn't hers, and I know it's still out there, waiting to speak again. The afternoon sun hung heavy over our quiet suburban street, painting the house in a golden haze that should have felt warm, safe. But as I stepped through the front door, skipping summer camp to steal a few hours of freedom, something was wrong. The air inside was too still, too thick, like the house was holding its breath. Then I saw her, my mother, walking past my bedroom toward the air conditioning panel, her silhouette familiar, but off her presence silent, unacknowledged. Except my mother wasn't home. She was at work miles away, and the woman I saw wasn't her. I was 14, restless, craving the kind of freedom that comes with ditching rules. Summer camp was a drag. Too many crafts, too many forced smiles. So I'd slipped away, walking the 2 miles home to our small house in a sleepy American suburb. The place was my sanctuary, filled with memories of family dinners, my grandmother's stories, and the hum of the TV. Sensory overload. The air smelled of jasmine from the garden, mixed with the faint must of old carpet, the sunlight streaming through the windows in lazy, dust-filled beams. I tossed my backpack onto the couch, the house quiet, except for the faint hum of the fridge, and headed to my room to binge Weeds on Netflix. That's when I saw her. Pattern interruption. She moved past my bedroom door, her figure unmistakable. My mother's short hair, her familiar cardigan, her purposeful stride toward the air conditioning panel in the hallway. But she didn't look at me, didn't speak, didn't acknowledge that I was home when I shouldn't be. My heart gave a quick thud, not from fear, but confusion. "Mom!" I called, my voice soft, expecting her to turn to scold me for skipping camp. She didn't. She just kept walking, her movements fluid, but wrong, like a puppet mimicking life. I stood frozen, my hand still on the remote, the TV's laugh track jarring against the silence. I blinked, and she was gone. The hallway empty. Sensory overload. The air felt colder. Now the jasmine scent sharper, almost sour. The sunlight dimmer, as if the house had shifted into shadow. I shook it off, telling myself it was a trick of the light, my tired eyes playing games. I sank onto my bed, the mattress creaking under me, and hit play on the show, but my mind wasn't on it. Something was off, like a note played wrong in a song you know by heart. Embedded command. Feel it now, the way the house watches you, its silence alive, knowing you saw something you shouldn't. Hours later, the garage door rumbled open, and my mother walked in. Her real presence, loud and warm, her keys jangling, her voice calling out, "Why are you home?" I stared at her, my stomach twisting. "I saw you earlier," I said, my voice small. "You were here by the AC panel." Her face paled, her eyes narrowing. "I was at work all day," she said, firm but uneasy. "You must have imagined it." But I hadn't. I knew her shape, her walk, and the figure I'd seen wasn't a dream. It was too real, too solid, too wrong. I didn't push it, didn't want to scare myself more. But the house felt different after that. Its familiar corners sharper, its shadows deeper. Trance. Loop. I kept seeing her in my mind, that silent figure moving through the hallway, her presence a violation of everything safe. I told my grandmother later, at a family dinner, expecting her to laugh, to call it a teenage fancy. Instead, her face grew still, her eyes distant. Nested storytelling. She leaned close, her voice low, and told me about her childhood in Vietnam, walking home along an abandoned railroad with her friends. A lantern glowed in the distance, bobbing, luring them deeper into the dark. It wasn't a light, she said, her hands trembling. It was a trap, something that wanted us to follow. She'd been told as a child that such lights were spirits leading you astray, stealing you from the world. The only way to break their hold, her parents said, was to wipe urine on your face, a strange, desperate act to snap you back to reality. She and her friends had done it laughing through their fear, and the lantern vanished, leaving them lost but alive. Sensory overload. The memory of her story hit me now. The candlelight on the dinner table flickering the air, heavy with the scent of rice and fish sauce. My grandmother's eyes locked on mine, seeing something I couldn't. She went on, her voice barely a whisper. I saw something in this house once, she said. Your other grandmother, my mother, standing in that hallway years after she died. She looked real, but her eyes weren't hers. They were empty, like glass. My heart pounded, the room shrinking, the chatter of my family fading to a hum. My grandmother believed in spirits in the Buddhist tales of her youth, but I'd always dismissed them. Now her words were a weight, anchoring me to the fear I'd felt that afternoon. Anchoring. That figure, that not mother, became a splinter in my mind, a memory I couldn't shake. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I'd been tired, my eyes bleary from the walk home. Maybe the light had played tricks, casting shadows that looked like her. But the house didn't feel like home anymore. Trance loop. I'd walk past the hallway, my eyes darting to the AC panel, expecting to see her again, her silent stride, her wrongness. I stopped watching TV alone, kept my door open, listened for sounds that weren't there. The jasmine outside my window, once comforting, now smelled too sweet, too heavy, like it was hiding something. Weeks later, I saw something else. Pattern interruption. It was late, the house dark, my family asleep. I was in the kitchen, grabbing a glass of water, when a light flickered outside near the garden. It wasn't a street lamp, not a car, too small, too unsteady, like a lantern bobbing in the dark. My breath caught my grandmother's story, flooding back. I stood frozen, the glass cold in my hand, watching the light move slow and deliberate toward the edge of the yard. It didn't get closer, didn't fade, just hovered, as if waiting for me to follow. Embedded command. Picture it now, that light in the dark, calling you, pulling you toward something you can't name. I didn't move, didn't dare. The light lingered, minutes stretching into eternity, then vanished, leaving the yard black and still. I didn't tell anyone. This time, my mother wouldn't believe me, and my grandmother's stories were already too real. But I couldn't sleep that night, my eyes fixed on the window, waiting for the light to return, for the figure to appear. Sensory overload. The house creaked. The fridge hummed. The air carried a faint metallic tang, like blood or rust. I felt watched, not just by the light, but by the house itself, its walls holding secrets I wasn't meant to know. I started researching, digging into Vietnamese folklore, Buddhist tales of spirits and doppelgangers. I found stories of entities that wore familiar faces, luring you with trust before leading you astray. Some said they were ghosts, others demons, others something older, tied to the land itself. Nested storytelling. A neighbor once told me about her aunt, who saw her dead husband in their kitchen. His face perfect, but his eyes wrong, like they belonged to someone else. She'd moved away, unable to stay in a house that wasn't hers anymore. I understood her now, the way a home could turn traitor, its safety a lie. The fear lingered a shadow that followed me through the years. I'm older now, living in a new city, far from that house, but I check corners, avoid mirrors at night, listen for footsteps that don't belong. Trance. Loop. I see her, still that not mother, walking past my door, her silence louder than any scream. The lantern light haunts my dreams, bobbing in the dark, calling me to follow. Anchoring. That figure, that light, they're part of me now, a reminder that some things don't need a name to be real, don't need a reason to find you. I've never gone back to that house, never asked my mother if she felt it too, but I wonder if it's still there, that thing wearing her face, that light waiting in the yard. Embedded command. Feel it now, standing in your own home, seeing someone you love, knowing. It's not them, knowing it wants something you can't give. The world feels thinner. Now the line between real and unreal blurred. I don't know what I saw, but I know it saw me, and it's waiting patient, eternal for me to look again. The promise of a new home felt like a beacon, a chance to leave behind the chaos of our past. But in that creaking, shadowed house, something waited its presence, as old as the walls, as patient as death itself. At 11 years old, the world felt both too big and too small, a paradox of childhood, where every change was a storm. Mom and I moved into Tom's house in the summer, a sprawling, dilapidated structure on the edge of a small town, its silhouette jagged against the fading sky. The air carried the scent of pine and decay, a reminder of the overgrown backyard where weeds tangled like secrets. Our old apartment had been a shoebox, my room barely wide enough for a bed, so this house despite its flaws, felt like a gift. The walls were stained with years of neglect, their paint peeling like skin, and the floors groaned under every step. But my new bedroom was a luxury, a wide, airy space with a window that framed the world outside. I told myself the unease curling in my chest was just the ache of leaving behind the familiar, the weight of starting over in a stranger's domain. Mom was different here, her smile brighter, her steps lighter, as if Tom's presence had lifted a burden I hadn't seen her carry. Tom was quiet, his eyes kind but distant, his house a testament to a life lived carelessly, dishes piled in the sink, curtains frayed at the edges, a faint smell of mildew lingering in the air. My younger siblings stayed with Dad, leaving me as the only child in this new life, a solitary figure navigating a maze of creaking floorboards and flickering lights. The first night, I lay in my new bed, the mattress sagging under my weight, my eyes tracing the cracks in the ceiling. The house seemed alive, its groans and sighs a language I couldn't yet read. Footsteps echoed in the hallway, some nights too quick for Mom's steady gait, too heavy for Tom's shuffling steps. I'd press my ear to the door, my breath shallow, but the silence that followed was heavier, a presence that pressed against my skin. I unpacked slowly, my clothes filling only half the wardrobe. The rest of its shelves empty, their wood warped and splintered. The window was my favorite part, large and uncurtained waiting in the golden light of late summer. Beyond it, the backyard stretched into a tangle of brambles and pines, their shadows dancing as the sun sank. I'd sit on the floor, my back against the bed, sketching the view in a notebook, trying to make this space mine. But the unease persisted, a whisper in my mind that grew louder each night. I'd hear things, faint taps on the walls, the creak of stairs when no one was awake, a rustle like someone moving just out of sight. I told myself it was the house settling its old bones, adjusting to us. But my heart beat faster, my hands trembling as I clutched my pencil. Mom noticed my quietness, my reluctance to linger in my room. "It's just new," she'd say, her hand warm on my shoulder. "You'll get used to it." I wanted to believe her, wanted to see this house as she did a fresh start, a chance to rebuild. But the shadows seemed to watch me, their edges sharper in the dim light of evening. I'd stand at my door, peering through the crack, before entering a habit born of instinct, a need to be sure I was alone. The hallway was always empty, its walls scuffed, its air heavy with dust. I'd step inside my sneakers, silent on the worn carpet, and try to shake the feeling that something else was here, waiting its presence, as real as the floor beneath my feet. The house wasn't just old. It was heavy, as if it held secrets too deep to unearth, and I was only beginning to sense their weight. As the days stretched into weeks, the house's quirks turned sinister, its noises no longer random, but deliberate. I checked the crack of the door, as always, expecting nothing. But that day, she was there, a woman, her dark hair a curtain, her stillness a scream that froze my blood. The footsteps I'd heard at night grew bolder, not just passing, but pausing, lingering outside my door like a predator testing its prey. They were erratic, too quick to be Mom's measured steps, too heavy for Tom's tired shuffle. I'd lie awake, my blanket pulled tight, my eyes fixed on the ceiling, counting the cracks to calm my racing heart. The window, once my refuge, felt tainted, its light dimmer, the shadows it cast longer and more jagged. I stopped sketching my notebook, abandoned on the floor, its pages curling in the damp air, as if the house itself rejected my attempts to claim it. One afternoon, I came home from school, my backpack heavy with textbooks, my shoulders aching from the walk. The house was quiet. Mom in the kitchen, humming a tune, Tom still at work. The air was warm, thick, with the scent of summer grass and dust, the sunlight filtering through the trees outside. I paused at my bedroom door, my ritual unchanged, my eyes scanning the crack for movement. The hallway was dim, the light from a single bulb flickering like a dying star, casting long shadows that seemed to breathe. Nothing moved, nothing stirred. So I pushed the door open, stepped inside, and stopped dead. A woman stood by the window, her back to me, her silhouette sharp against the fading sunlight. Her hair was dark, tightly permed, cascading over her shoulders like a veil. Her arms were thin, wrinkled, her posture stooped, as if the weight of years had bent her spine. She didn't move, didn't turn, but her presence filled the room, a heavy, suffocating force that pressed against my chest. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm that drowned out the world. I wanted to scream, to run, but my legs were rooted, my voice trapped in my throat. The room felt colder, the air thick with a metallic tang, like rust or blood. She stood on the right side of my bed, where the carpet met the window, her figure motionless but alive. A paradox that made my skin crawl. I slept on the left side, a small mercy, but the distance between us felt meaningless. Her presence, a tide that could swallow me whole. I backed away, my sneakers catching on the carpet, my breath ragged as I stumbled toward the stairs. My voice broke free. At last, a desperate shout for Mom. As I ran my eyes burning with tears, the image of that woman seared into my mind. Mom was in the kitchen, her hands dusted with flour, a loaf of bread half formed on the counter. "There's someone in my room," I gasped, clutching her arm, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold on. She frowned, wiping her hands on her apron, and followed me upstairs, her steps calm but cautious. The room was empty, the window bare, the light unchanged, as if nothing had happened. "You're tired," she said, her voice gentle but firm, though her eyes lingered on the window, a flicker of unease crossing her face. Maybe it was a shadow. I shook my head, tears spilling over, but she hugged me, her warmth a fleeting anchor. We didn't speak of it again that night, an unspoken agreement to keep the fear at bay. But I couldn't unsee her, couldn't shake the weight of her presence. The house felt different now, its walls watching its silence, a threat that grew louder with every passing day. The days that followed were a blur of unease. The house no longer a home, but a labyrinth of shadows. Mom didn't believe me. Not at first, but her questions about the woman's hair changed everything. The truth was creeping closer, hidden in the words of a neighbor who knew too much. I avoided my room, choosing the living room couch for homework. The TVs hum a shield against the silence that seemed to pulse from upstairs. Mom watched me closely, her smiles forced her hands restless as she cooked or cleaned. I could see the doubt in her eyes, the way she glanced at my door when she thought I wasn't looking. The house seemed to feed on our tension, its groans louder, its air heavier with each passing night. The footsteps returned fainter, but persistent, always stopping outside my room. A silent promise that kept me awake, my blanket a thin defense against the dark. One evening, I came home from school to find Mom in the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, her face pale, as if she'd seen something she couldn't unsee. "I talked to Mrs. Larson," she said, her voice low, almost a whisper, as if speaking louder might summon trouble. Mrs. Larson was our neighbor, an older woman whose garden bloomed with roses, her eyes kind but sharp, as if she saw beyond the surface of things. "About what you saw in your room." My heart skipped a mix of hope and dread twisting in my chest. She said an elderly woman lived here before Tom. Mom continued, her eyes fixed on mine, searching for something I couldn't name. This was her bedroom. She died in it, found days later. The words landed like stones, heavy and cold, sinking into my chest. I swallowed my mouth dry, trying to process the idea that my room, my sanctuary, was a grave. I wanted to dismiss it, to call it coincidence. But Mom's next question stopped me cold. What color was her hair? She asked, her voice trembling, her fingers tightening around the mug. I frowned, confused by the specificity, the urgency in her tone. Dark, I said, my voice barely audible, the memory vivid in my mind. Not gray, like you'd expect. Dark, permed like curls. Mom's face drained of color, her mug clattering as she set it down, her hands shaking. Mrs. Larson said she dyed her hair. Dark, she whispered, her eyes wide with something beyond fear, something closer to horror. Even in her old age, she kept it dark. My stomach twisted, a sickening realization that this wasn't Mom's usual teasing, her playful pranks meant to make me laugh. This was real, too real. And it was unraveling the fragile safety I'd clung to since we moved in. I laughed, a nervous, shaky sound, desperate to break the spell that had settled over us. You're messing with me, I said, but my voice betrayed me, quivering at the edges, my hands clenched in my lap. Mom shook her head, her expression unyielding, her eyes locked on mine. She wasn't joking. She said, her voice firm, though her hands trembled as she reached for her coffee, only to push it away. Mrs. Larson knew her, saw her every day. I wanted to argue, to cling to skepticism, to tell myself it was all a trick. But the image of that woman, her hair, her stillness, her presence, burned in my mind, too vivid to dismiss. I stopped sleeping in my room that night, dragging my blankets to the couch. The living room's dim light, a weak defense against the dark that seemed to seep from upstairs. Mom didn't push me, didn't argue, but I saw the worry in her eyes, the way she avoided my door, as if she felt it too, as if she knew the house was no longer ours. As the weeks dragged on, the house became a battleground, its shadows warring with our attempts to reclaim it. We thought redecorating would cleanse the room, make it mine again. But under the carpet, we found her mark, a stain that spoke of death, a truth we couldn't ignore. Mom decided to redecorate my room, a desperate attempt to banish the fear that clung to us like damp air. A fresh start, she said, her voice bright, but strained, as if convincing herself as much as me. We spent a weekend tearing out the old, peeling wallpaper, its patterns faded, like forgotten memories, the adhesive sticking to our fingers, like regret. The wardrobe was next, its doors creaking as we opened them, revealing a collection of clothes, dresses with floral patterns, sweaters knitted with care, their fabric soft but heavy with age. They belonged to an older woman. Their style outdated their folds, pristine as if waiting for her to return. In the corner, a pair of men's shoes, scuffed and cracked, sat like relics, their leather holding the shape of feet long gone. I shivered, my hands hesitating as I touched the fabric, the air thick with dust, and something heavier, something alive. The carpet was the final task, its fibers, matted and stained, clinging to the floor like a second skin. We pulled it up the wood, beneath splintered and dark, its grain warped by time and neglect. Near the window where she'd stood, we found it a patch of uneven staining, dark and irregular, its edges spreading like a bruise across the floorboards. The smell hit us first, faint but unmistakable, a sickly sweet decay that made my stomach churn, my throat tighten. Mom froze her hands, gripping the carpet, her face pale as she stared at the mark, her breath shallow. "It's nothing," she said, but her voice was hollow, her eyes betraying the lie, wide with the horror of recognition. Decomposition. The word hung unspoken between us, a truth too grotesque to voice aloud. This was where she'd died, where her body had lain undiscovered for days, her essence seeping into the floor, marking it as hers. I stumbled back, my knees weak, my breath ragged, the room spinning around me. The space felt smaller, its walls closing in the window, no longer a portal to freedom, but a frame for her presence, a stage for her silent vigil. Mom covered the stain, her hands steady, but her eyes distant, as if she saw her too, as if she felt the weight of that death pressing against her. We didn't finish. Redecorating that day, didn't touch the clothes or the shoes, didn't speak of the stain that lay hidden beneath the carpet we'd hastily replaced. The wardrobe stayed open, its contents untouched, a shrine to a woman I'd never known, but couldn't escape. I moved my things to the living room, my blankets a fortress on the couch, my eyes avoiding the hallway that led to my room, now a tomb in my mind. The house was no longer ours, its history too heavy, its ghosts too real to ignore. Mom tried to keep things normal, her cooking filling the house with the scent of bread and spices, her laughter a forced melody that rang hollow. Tom was oblivious, his days spent at work, his evenings in front of the TV, but Mom and I shared a silent understanding, a pact forged in fear. We didn't belong here, not in a place marked by death. Its walls whispering secrets we couldn't silence. I'd catch myself staring at the window from the living room, half expecting to see her, her dark hair a silhouette against the glass, her stillness a promise of something yet to come. The house felt alive, its groans a warning, its shadows a threat that grew bolder with each passing night. I stopped believing in fresh starts, in the idea that a new home could erase the past, because this house held its past too tightly, its grip unyielding. We lived in that house for a year. Each day, a struggle against the weight of its history, until Mom and Tom parted ways and we fled to a new life. We left the house, but she stayed with me, her shadow in every quiet moment, her presence a reminder that some ghosts never leave. The new apartment was small, modern, its walls clean, and its air free of decay, a stark contrast to the house we'd left behind. My new room was bright, its window facing a busy street, the hum of traffic a comfort after the oppressive silence of that bedroom. But she followed me. The woman with the dark, permed hair, her silhouette etched in my mind, a specter that refused to fade. I'd wake at night, my heart racing, certain I'd seen her standing by my new window, her presence a shadow that crossed the boundary of space and time, her stillness as chilling as ever. I'd check the crack of my door, an old habit that refused to die, but the hallway was always empty, its light steady, its air clean. The footsteps were gone, the groans silenced, but the memory of her was a scar that ached in quiet moments, a wound that never fully healed. I stopped sketching my notebook, lost in the move, its pages, a record of a time I'd rather forget, a time when I'd tried to claim a space that wasn't mine. Mom never speaks of it, her eyes distant when I mention the house, as if she fears summoning her back, as if she knows the woman's presence lingers in us both. Mrs. Larson's words echo in my mind, the detail of the dark hair, a truth I can't unlearn, a confirmation that what I saw was real, not a trick of the light or a child's imagination. The stain, the clothes, the shoes, they were proof undeniable that she was real, that she'd claimed that room long before I had. I wonder who she was, what kept her there, why she chose to show herself to me, a stranger in her domain. Was she angry, lonely, or simply lost her spirit, tethered to the place where her life ended? The house is still there. I'm sure its walls holding her story, its windows framing her ghost, its floorboards marked by her death. I'll never go back, never set foot in that room again. But I carry her with me, a specter in the corners of my mind, her dark hair, a reminder that some places belong to the dead. The house was never ours, and neither was I, not truly not, when she stood by my window. Her presence, a claim I couldn't contest, a haunt that will follow me forever.